Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSP, and remind you, of course, to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Most importantly, enable notifications to receive always the updates of this podcast and other videos on the channel. Of course, follow us on social media at SidePSP on Twitter and PitchsidePod on Instagram. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can get it from. And join us for more. You're absolutely welcome. It's Friday, so it's, of course, we're back to action, of course, bang, really, fixtures coming thick and fast. We can't really stop having football. It's festive period football, so it's going to be coming really a lot this couple of weeks. And as much as you want to start with the Premier League, as much as tempted maybe to start with the Premier League again, there's also a couple of interesting matches there, but we're going to get to later, of course. I'm going to leave this after I talk about what I think is going to be the biggest game of the week in the European top football, probably the most interesting as well from, a competitive point of view. It is going to be Bayern Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich, of course, in the round 13 of the Bundesliga. This round starts actually today. Union Berlin, surprise package this season, face Borussia Dortmund. Union Berlin, of course, coming out of a draw last time out against Stuttgart, while Borussia Dortmund barely won against Werder Bremen in the first game under Edin Terzic, coming off that stint with Lucien Favre, of course, ended last week with the sacking of the manager from the club, really deservedly, I would say, after some bad, not just results, but performances overall, because, let's face it, Dortmund haven't been winning anything since a couple of seasons ago, and the only thing that was, achieved basically by Lucien Favre is just having a couple of more youngsters into the club and being more exciting, and that's about it. And for Dortmund, it shouldn't be about, that's about it. It should be more than that. It should be silverware now. They should be thinking about the next step when they got the likes of Haaland, really, and Giovanni Reina in the club as well, with Jadon Sancho not performing at his best out of it, probably should be benched for this game, I don't know. Union Berlin, as you mentioned, in pretty decent form. They sit at 6th, again, coming out of a draw. Maybe they will see this as a chance to have an important win, really. I mean, it comes down to whether Borussia Dortmund are going to be in a good form or not today, depending on the results. Of course, I would say maybe they will, come to their senses a little bit. But again, with an interim manager, you don't know what you're going to get anyway. On Saturday, 6 matches are played on Saturday. Borussia Mönchengladbach hosting Hoffenheim, both on a wobbly form as of late in the Bundesliga. As far as Borussia Mönchengladbach are concerned, really, since they won against Schalke 4-1, they never had any victories. 2 losses in the Champions League and 3 draws in the Bundesliga. For Hoffenheim, it's not that much better, really. Their only win the last 5 was in the Europa League. 2 losses back-to-back to arguably, 2 of the best sides in the Bundesliga this season in RB Leipzig, and before that, Bayer Leverkusen 4-1. Borussia Mönchengladbach, they're going to be looking to try and creep into the top 4, maybe top 5, really. It seems out of reach this season. For a side that just got to the round of 16 of the Champions League, and they have a pretty interesting game against Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. They seem to fall a little bit out of favour. They seem to be not doing well. Obviously, bad patch of form. Marco Rose's side probably need to get themselves right on the track. They don't look that convincing, with the ball. They come back from trailing 3 times in a row, which is really bad. They needed to save themselves against Freiburg. They needed to save themselves against Hertha Berlin. They needed to save themselves against Eintracht Frankfurt. It was a pretty late save for Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, it makes a difference, really, because had they lost that game, probably they would have been even down the table, which is not good for a side that is going to be playing Champions League football in February, and it's going to be having a very, big tie, as you mentioned, against Manchester City in the round of 16. Schalke against Arminia Bielefeld, relegation battle, really. I don't know what to say. Every time I talk about Schalke, I feel really sorry for them. They're having such a bad period, it doesn't really look anytime soon that they're only getting out of their slump. Really, they seem destined to be down to the second tier of the Bundesliga. I mean, hopefully they do anything of sorts, really. At least they go down with a bang. Hopefully, Augsburg face Eintracht Frankfurt, Mainz faced Werder Bremen, RB Leipzig face Köln in an easy game, I would say, for Julian Nagelsmann. Boys, there should be 3 points in the bag for them. On Sunday, Freiburg, Hertha Berlin, and Wolfsburg host Stuttgart. And now, of course, we can talk and we can focus on the game between Bayern Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, the biggest game of the week in the Bundesliga. Probably in Europe, I would say. Some would underrate that, but I would say it is the biggest game in the top European football this week. Bayern Leverkusen, undefeated in the Bundesliga, coming in such a strong form at the moment that almost everybody is, expecting some sort of upset. I mean, it won't be an upset really, because if a team is playing that good for so long and having a great season so far, being undefeated and performing really, really well, the fact is, Bayern Leverkusen at the moment are the strongest defense in the Bundesliga. The second stronger defense in the Bundesliga after Leipzig, conceding only 10 goals. And in the scoring department, they don't lack firepower. Really, 27 goals is not bad for Peter Bosch's boys. But it needs. But this is the test, right? This is the ultimate test for their credentials. I mean, everybody's talking about could they give Bayern Munich and Leipzig a run for their money. Really, it seems that the race would have been Bayern versus Leipzig at the beginning, and now it is a triple horse race really for the title in the Bundesliga. At the moment, we don't know what is going to happen really, because in the last couple of seasons we've seen clubs lead the table in December and then they just finish 4th or 5th. We've seen that happen at Dortmund, we've seen that happen to Borussia Mönchengladbach last season. We're leading the table at this point of the season and they ended 4th. Leipzig led the table at certain points and then they ended 3rd. I mean, Bayern Leverkusen, this game is all about getting a result out of Bayern. It's not, I mean, maybe not losing would not put it the best way, but I think it's all about getting a result against Bayern. Bayern Munich are, walking on spaghetti legs. That's what I would say for Bayern Munich. 4 draws in the last 5 games. 3 draws in the last 5 games, including, of course, the Atletico Madrid draw in the Champions League. Again, we put an asterisk on that because that was the second/third team maybe playing for the most part. But in the Bundesliga, when you have 2 draws in the last 4 games and you concede goals in the last, Bayern Munich's last clean sheet was back in October. It was back in late October. That is how, not bad, but that is how poor the defensive performance could be sometimes. And yes, it is compensated by the fact that they have a strong attack, the strongest attack in the Bundesliga. They're scoring 37 goals. But when you have such a poor defense sometimes, and again, the high line is such a detriment to Bayern Munich's efforts. I mean, most teams in the Bundesliga this season have quite the pacey attackers, and if they don't have pacey attackers, they would have attackers that would do the right movement. We saw that against Wolfsburg. They have someone like Wout Weghorst, and have Roussillon and Kevin Mbappe on the right and left coming and making the runs. And Wolfsburg made it a hard game for Bayern, really capitalising on the mistakes with the high line. And again, I can put an asterisk on that Bayern started with Zölle as a right back, which doesn't work well sometimes. It didn't work. It didn't work. But again, Bayern Leverkusen, I think, are different. I think Bayern Leverkusen are so much smooth with the ball than some other Bundesliga sides, because some other Bundesliga sides can hit the high line, can find the high line, but they cannot have the right finish, they cannot have the right movement. But Bayer Leverkusen this season seem to have it all. They seem to have the right movement, the right pace, they have the transition really well on the ball. The wingers that they have, in Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby improved a lot this season in my opinion. I thought Last season he was a bit selfish, a little bit sluggish, a little bit too immature sometimes with their decision making on the ball, but this season he improved a lot. That guy is a nightmare to defend for Benjamin Pavard or Bunassar or whoever's going to be starting in that game. It's really going to be a nightmare to defend for for Leon. For Benjamin Pavard, who's going to probably be starting on the right hand side. On the left hand side is going to be interesting. Leon Bailey is going to be a lot pacey. If we see Alphonso Davies start, it's going to be an interesting battle as well. There's also the midfield struggles at the moment. It seems like Bayern are going to be, still having questions over Leon Goretzka. He's still probably not going to be playing with the continued absence of the likes of Kouassi and Martinez, and the fact that Bayern Munich at least have Kimmich back in their squad now, which is good news really. If you're Bayern Munich, because they missed his presence in the midfield a lot. There's just a lot of individual head-to-heads that you're going to be looking forward into this game. A lot of head-to-heads and a lot of individual duels you would want to see in this game. Again, for Bayern Munich, it's all about defending well, I would say, because Bayern Leverkusen are going to be the aggressors. I think they will try to take advantage of Bayern's usual slow starts to the games. So they will try to start really slow. They will try to start really fast. For Bayern Leverkusen, capitalize on the slow start for Bayern, capitalize on the high line, use the spaces in the midfield. Again, with the absence of someone like Kimmich, is Kimmich available? Is Kimmich going to play really? I don't really know at the moment. I don't necessarily think that it is too. I think it is good really to play him, even though he returned to training. But I don't think his fitness will be too good for a big match like that. Let's say, because this is quite a big fixture, and I think this would demand a lot of work from Kimmich to keep some of the Leverkusen players at bay, the likes of Nadim Amiri, Florian Wirtz in the midfield are just a nightmare, I think, to defend at the moment, because Florian Wirtz, as young as he is, for 17-year-old, he moves so well in between the lines, and his movement is so incredibly smart that you can't deal with him really. He's a young Thomas Muller. He's a 17-year-old Thomas Muller when you look at him. He comes from behind. He cuts into the box. He really does a lot of things that you can only be impressed by if you are a football viewer. Just to wrap it up, I think Bayern Munich, it's all about defending for Bayern Leverkusen. It's all about attacking really. Bayern Munich, should be good to get something out of this game really. They should be good to get something out of this game. This is a defining moment of the season, I think, for both sides. Who's going to be coming off the worst? I reckon, depending on the result, probably it would be Bayern. If it's a draw, that means the race is going to be going on. If it's a loss altogether, which is very possible, that means that the race is going to be going on as well. If Bayern make it to win, we're probably going to be disappointed to not see a title race, but again, Bayern need the win, considering the fact that it has been hard to them for the last couple of weeks. So that's it for the Bundesliga review of the week, and let's move on, of course, now to the Premier League. So no fixtures, of course, on Friday for the Premier League. Of course, Premier League starts on Saturday and kicks off with Crystal Palace hosting Liverpool. Very interesting game for Jurgen Klopp, of course, after the big win against Tottenham in midweek, coming in the 90th minute thanks to Roberto Firmino. The best side won in that game, unless you're Jose Mourinho, really, who's convinced that his side were better and they lost. I don't know how that makes sense, but Jose Mourinho deflects a lot of stuff, and he made a lot of comments about Jurgen Klopp's attitude on the pitch line and whatever. He's Captain Deflecto by nature. Southampton host Manchester City on Saturday as well. Big game. It could be an upset, really, for Pep Guardiola. This could be not just a banana skin. This could be a bunch of banana skins in one game. Southampton are doing really well at the moment, and the draw against Arsenal last time out is probably I think it's considered a bad result, because looking at how Arsenal have been performing this season, it looks disappointing that Southampton, the better side in that game, clearly didn't get 3 points that they could have gotten, and they were in the lead at certain points, but they only managed to draw. I mean, it is baffling at the moment how we're talking about Southampton and how we're talking about Arsenal, but I think this game looks more 50-50 than it seems. Probably, even in some ways, it might fare towards Southampton. It might swing towards Southampton, really, because everybody's looking at Manchester City and saying they are so ineffective at the moment, so unable to score, so unable to create chances, look so slow and labouring at certain points. The midfield is not doing really well. The attackers do not have that spark anymore. People are, lamenting the loss of David Silva, saying they miss someone like David Silva. They're still, experiencing basically the effects of David Silva being sorely missed at the club, of course, after leaving last season. For Southampton, they're really doing well at the moment. This is a big chance for them, really, to, maybe overleap Tottenham. It could happen. It could happen depending on that result. But obviously, now with Liverpool taking the lead, 3 points at the top, it's going to be maybe all about trying to close the gap for the other clubs, for Tottenham in particular. If Southampton keep the momentum going, in fact, I think this is a decisive game for them. Can Manchester City wake up and move up the table, really? They are at 9th with 20 points. Can Southampton shut them down? Can Southampton keep them at bay? Defensively, they're not that strong. Southampton are not exactly the strongest of side when it comes to defensive performance. 18 goals so far from 13 games. The fact is that there is no team in the Premier League that conceded less than 12 goals. Tottenham are the strongest team alongside Man City, and they conceded 12 goals. So probably all teams in the Premier League have a problem defending. But for Southampton, it seems that they just leave themselves, too open to simply, a lot of counter-attacks. The Tottenham game in particular, they left themselves too open and they conceded 5. It happens, really. For Man City, again, could their ineffectiveness come into place, really, and cost them against Southampton? Even if it cost them 1 point, not even losing, if it cost them 1 point, this is going to be another disappointment, because a third draw in a row, and the last one against West Brom is just baffling. The fact that they had 27 shots or something and they couldn't score, and West Brom's so unlucky, really, to, with the deflected shot. Man City are still lacking something. They look too predictable. They look very readable, very easy to read as a side. You look at your fixture list and you say Manchester City, and you probably know how you're going to play against them. Mostly, you're going to be knowing that they are going to be playing the ball sideways. They're going to be trying to pass the ball into the net. That's how they've been playing under Guardiola for the last couple of seasons, and that's what you expect. That is really what everybody's going to be thinking when they will play Manchester City. It's an interesting game, as you mentioned. Probably banana skin. Who knows? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very fun to watch. That's for sure. Everton take on Arsenal, and Everton are really riding high now. A couple of enjoyable wins, a couple of enjoyable performances now against Chelsea and against Everton, after they had quite the rough patch of performance throughout the last month or so, the last 2 months, really. They had 4 losses in the last 8 Premier League games, a draw, and then they defeat Chelsea and defeat Leicester, sides above them at the table, and they don't concede goals, really. 2 clean sheets against Chelsea and against Leicester City. Particularly the one against Chelsea, I would say, was quite impressive, because they were quite the second best side in that game. They didn't exist pretty much in that game against Chelsea. Against Leicester, I think they had a better outing. They had a more balanced outing. We're going to be talking about Leicester a little bit, but they really look really, really good at the moment, Everton. The good form maybe should continue for them against Arsenal, against the side. I should be mentioning, this side is for the taking, really. Let me be clear, let me be true about it. Arsenal are for the taking at the moment. They look so dishevelled, and they're going to be missing so many players. Bellerin is suspended, Gabriel is suspended, Granit Xhaka suspended, and Thomas Partey, of course, for injury, aside from the fact that they will never have Mesut Ozil, it seems, because Mikel Arteta doesn't think he's fit to play for the club tactically, which is, a very, very bad information if you are an Arsenal fan. For Arsenal, the form, I think, speaks for itself. The fact that their only wins in the last 10 games are Europa League victories. It's ridiculous. Their only wins in the last couple of games are Europa League victories. They defeated Molde 4-1, they defeated Rapid Vienna 4-1, they defeated Dundalk 4-2, they defeat Molde away 3-0, and then in the Premier League they lose to Aston Villa 3-0, and they lose to Wolves. They lose to Tottenham, of course, and they lose to Burnley via that calamitous own goal. I don't want to remember that anytime soon. And the draw against Southampton, which seems like they won 1 point because they entered this game thinking Southampton are going to be battering them, and they got a point away from it. Their form against Everton is probably going to be some sort of motivation for them, considering the fact that they didn't lose the last 5 games against Everton as well. I mean, their streak is extended. The last time Everton defeated them in the Premier League was back in 2016, but again, those were different times, I would say. I think Arsenal at the moment are really for the taking if Everton focus really well. Newcastle face Fulham. This is the last game on Saturday, of course. On Sunday, Brighton host Sheffield United. Tottenham host Leicester. This is the game we're going to be talking about. Tottenham, how are they going to be doing after the loss to Liverpool? How are they going to be coping? I'm not going to say they're going to be entering a rough patch of form, but not exactly the right time to lose for Tottenham, really. They were picking up steam, picking up momentum, they were doing really well. Everybody was impressed by their doggedness, not to say, but their style of football, but their doggedness on the pitch, their application, their commitment to just obey the instructions of Jose Mourinho against the Leicester side that is woozy. I mean, seems to, doesn't walk straight on the line, really. They're really wobbly at the moment. They don't have the best track of consistency, really. If you look at last season, they don't have the best track of consistency. It's around this time of the year that they start losing their footing, and maybe this will happen once again after the loss against Everton. This will happen again if they lose to Tottenham on Sunday. If they lose to Tottenham, and it's very likely, really, because Leicester, against sides that close down well, do not seem to do so much, and it doesn't come better, I think, this season than Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, who are going to be expectedly playing, I call it defensive smart. Some people call it ugly and boring, but I call it defensive smart, really. He does know what his players need to do. He has a mostly effective way of doing things, let's be fair. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really hinder him a lot that he plays mostly defensively. Big game coming for Tottenham. Could they get themselves up on track? I mean, if they win here, they're going to make a statement to say, okay, this loss against Liverpool was just, a disappointing loss because it came late, but we could have done more. Man United host Leeds on Sunday, renewing the rivalries of the 90s. Manchester United and Leeds. Unfortunately, this game is going to be against an empty Old Trafford in Manchester. Really, the game coming in a time where both sides had good performances in the midweek. Leeds coming off 5-2 win against Newcastle. Man United just defeating Sheffield United on Thursday 3-2. Of course, I mean the result might tell you that they should have done more. And yes, to be fair, against a side that only had 1 point this season in Sheffield United, but again, you get the away wins where they matter. I mean, Man United's away form is perfect, by the way, if anybody doesn't pay notice. Man United are top of the table when it comes to away form, 6 out of 6 away wins. But it's at home where they struggle, because at home they're 17th on the table with only 5 points, 1 win on home soil. And it was against West Brom from all clubs. And then, of course, the draws against Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City. And then you have the draws against Arsenal, the losses against Arsenal and the draws against Chelsea and Manchester City, and those are their points this season. So their home form, it needs to improve. A banana skin, just like for Man City against Southampton, probably. Who knows? I mean, I don't know why we're talking about home and away form when there's no fans really, but somehow it matters this season, and it matters even more for Man United. Really, they sit good in the table, really at 6, just behind the top spots. Really, of course, they're going to be waiting maybe for a gift from Everton. I mean, potentially they could go as high as second, depending on the other results, of course. But I don't think necessarily that Everton are going to be losing to Arsenal, or that Southampton, that Tottenham are going to be losing to Leicester. Really, I mean, probably Man United, the best they could have, I think at the moment is third or fourth on the table. But this is going to be a very intriguing game to watch, very interesting game to watch, very enticing and entertaining game, hopefully, at Old Trafford. Please be better than the game against Man City. Please be better than the derby, really, because that was horrid to watch. West Brom hosts Aston Villa. Those are the games on Sunday, and on Monday, of course, Burnley hosting Wolves, and Chelsea coming off the back of two bad performances against Wolves and Everton, hosting West Ham in another banana skin as well for them. It was around the same time, Christmas time, New Year's time, where they lost to West Ham last season at home, so it doesn't really look that promising. And West Ham, they drawn the game against Crystal Palace in a game where they should have won, really. Sebastian Haller maybe is going to be coming with the form of that beautiful scissors kick. He probably would look to be scoring against Chelsea, who knows. Again, intriguing one for Frank Lampard, who tries a lot to dismiss his title competing credential, and probably another bad result is going to be dismissing those credentials overall. That's it for the Premier League review, and moving on, of course, let's go to Spain now. And of course, unlike England, of course, Spain has action on Friday. It is Athletic Bilbao hosting Mr. Draws, aka Huesca, in the again Friday, so no one cares, game of the week. On Saturday, Atletico Madrid hosts Elche on the kickoff, on the lunchtime kickoff. Barcelona host Valencia, a tricky game for Ronald Koeman, really, after coming with good 2 results, albeit hard wins against both Levante and Real Sociedad, who were top of the table until last week, really. Defeating Real Sociedad 2-1 probably going to fill them with a lot of hope. Crucial 6 points, I think, for Barcelona, really. It moved them up to 5th. It might give them hope that they could turn the season around finally after some, rough start for the season in LaLiga, at least. I mean, in the Champions League they were perfect, but then the loss against Juventus put a lot of question marks on their season as well. The game against Valencia could be very, very tricky. I mean, Valencia are not in a great form, really, if you think about it. I mean, they won against Terrassa in the Copa del Rey 4-2 after extra time. So that tells you, I mean, since their win against Real Madrid, they are winless in La Liga, and even before that, their only win was against Real Sociedad. I mean, around the 4th, 5th week of La Liga, in the 5th week of La Liga, really, they defeated Real Sociedad 1-0, and that was their last win. That was their only win aside from the Real Madrid victory 4-1 at the Mestalla. So their form is pretty bad. I mean, they're not really looking very decent at the table at the moment. They're not in a safe place. They could be still going down this season. It could be getting worse for Valencia this season, for Albert Salades, but they would really look to get any kind of good result against Barcelona. Knowing the game is in camp now, probably they would be sitting deep, sitting defending. Barcelona will need the 3 points to move up the table. Again, turning the season around is quite the task and quite the priority, I would say, for Barcelona. Levante host the former top of the tables Real Sociedad. I mean, I enjoyed watching Real Sociedad this season, but could they get out of steam already? Could this be Could the end of 2020 be the end of the title aspiration, or sort of top table finish aspirations, I would say, for Real Sociedad? Osasuna host Villarreal also on Saturday, and Sevilla host Valladolid. On Sunday, it will be Celta Vigo hosting Alaves, Granada hosting Real Betis, Cadiz hosting Getafe, and Eibar hosting Real Madrid, who will be really licking the champion on the bits, really, to get the top spot on the table, depending on the results of Atletico Madrid and Real Sociedad. They'll secure a third. They're not going to be losing their position. They're not going to be dropping down anytime soon. Nobody's going to overtake them at their spot. So the only way is up at the moment. The only way going to be looking is going to be up for Real Madrid. And after the week that they had, after the victories that they had, the 4 victories back to back that they had, the 3 clean sheets, and then the victory against Bilbao in midweek, which was a little bit harder than everybody expected with the 10-man Athletic Bilbao, really. It was a little bit harder than everybody thought it would be. And Real Madrid now looking impressive. I mean, could they go the distance? I mean, is this a turnaround indeed? I think we should know by the next month or so. We'll probably know if this is a true turnaround or just a false hope and a false start for Real Madrid this season. I mean, there's nothing really big to talk about in LaLiga, really. It's all about focusing on the top table clashes. Barcelona-Valencia seems like the most interesting game to watch in LaLiga, and, for good reasons, really, because every time Barcelona play this season, it seems like there's a big possibility they're going to be losing because they are inconsistent. They have some defensive mistakes and defensive injuries that could affect them. The midfield is not working really well for them. So it might just be worth, it's really worth the watch for Barcelona. And moving on, of course, finishing our weekend preview, we're going to be moving to Italy and the Serie A. No action in Serie A on Friday, of course. It starts the round 13 on Saturday. Fiorentina hosting Hellas Verona, Sampdoria hosting Crotone, and in a very intriguing game as well, Parma hosting Juventus. All these games on Saturday. We're going to see how Juventus we're going to be dealing with this game after the draw against Atalanta, which was disappointing in a lot of points, really, considering that Atalanta have been even more inconsistent than Juve this season. They probably should have won, at least in the second half, I would say so, because they didn't deserve the lead that they got in the first half. They looked quite horrendous. They came to their senses around the second half, but again, missing the penalty by Cristiano Ronaldo, probably the winner right there for Juventus. I mean, even him wasn't on his good level against Atalanta. Coming off that draw, really, Pirlo criticised his team for being ineffective, which is a thing that they don't want to hear from your coach. Really, you don't want to hear your coach screaming and criticising and slamming you for being ineffective as a player. You want to see and you want to hear the support. But I think this is Pirlo's nature. It seems to be that he's going to be candid and he's going to be honest in his opinion, as it per the trend really for the new managers, probably the likes of Lampard in England, and you see Nagelsmann also in Germany. That just seems like the trend now in world football, that the managers would just be, out and out putting. They would not try to make it pretty and make it look pretty for the media. They will just say it however it is. Again, it's going to be an interesting game for Parma, who, after the draw against Milan and another draw against Cagliari, before that a draw against Benevento, 2 wins before that, and defeating Genoa, of course. They are quite a good form, undefeated in the last 4. We'll see how they're going to be dealing with this very, very ineffective, was mentioned, Juventus side. On Sunday, Torino hosting Bologna, Inter hosting Spezia. Maybe, Inter now picked up really, 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 really good steam at the moment. 2 victories against Cagliari and an important one against Napoli in the midweek, really. Could we see them back to the title race? They are close. They are getting really, really close. Could they be favourites? I mean, yes, it depends. They don't have European football now to think about, which is, usually an advantage for Antonio Conte's side, as I mentioned a lot before. He won the title with Chelsea when they didn't have European football in 2016-17. So it would really, it would really help motivate the squad a little bit more, probably give them that extra day of rest, maybe give them more time to think about the domestic games in the league, probably take advantage of some weary big clubs, probably take advantage of the likes of Juventus, Milan and Atalanta, again, who are still to play, of course, in the season as they get tired of the European competition. Cagliari hosts Udinese, Benevento hosting Genoa. In a very interesting game, Sassuolo hosts Milan. Really, this is going to be another tough test for Milan, and they have been, having a lot of those in the last couple of weeks. Really, tough draws against both Parma and Genoa, coming in both from behind, and late saves in both those games. Really, you don't expect Milan to struggle that much against those sides, but they did. The absences they had in the midfield and the defense probably were really effective. Still without Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and hopefully, they are getting their season right. They are getting the tactics right. They're getting everything right, Milan. But it seems that they were unlucky against Parma and a little bit disappointing against Genoa. But that doesn't really hinder the fact that they did tremendous turnaround in 2020 from a side that was really languishing in the middle of the table by the start of that year to probably the ball favourites to win the Scudetto. All in all, at the moment, they have a 1 point lead at the top of the table, but it doesn't really come much uncomfortable than just having a single point to lead at the top. Again, against Sassuolo side that are doing really well at the moment. They are 6th on the table, not far from the top spots really. Again, they could overleap the sides above them. At least they could go third even if they defeat Milan, and maybe this potential upset in the card, maybe the undefeated streak for AC Milan would stop at the hands of Sassuolo. Who knows really what is going to happen. Another interesting game on Sunday, Atalanta hosting AS Roma, and it's all about the whole spat now between Gasperini and Papu Gomez. Really, the fact that they fall out, everybody is asking whether Papu Gomez is going to be leaving the club in January. Gasperini said that if he's going to be leaving, they're going to be entering the market, which is a clear indication that the guy is done with the club. I mean, he subbed them on against Juventus, and he basically changed the game for them. But it doesn't get much clearer than this. Papu Gomez's future with Atalanta seems bleak at the moment, unless a miracle happens. It doesn't look that he will, continue at the club. It dates all back to the game against Midland in Italy, where in the Champions League, where seemingly, Papu Gomez didn't listen to the instructions of Gasperini, something like that, and they had a spat in the dressing room, and it was big. Apparently, reportedly, it was a big spat and a big exchange of heated words between the two sides. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how Atalanta deal with this kind of problems, and on the same time try to get their season right on track in Serie A. They're not that far from the positions that they want to reach, but in terms of point, at least they need to guarantee and to garner more points. And it's going to be interesting against an AS Roma side who are in a good form as well. They're sitting 4th on the table, and they will try to get more of their season really, and maybe return to the Champions League is going to be a decent objective for Roma this season. And finishing, of course, it is going to be Lazio facing Napoli. Both sides coming from really, horrendous results, I would say. A rough patch for Lazio at the moment. Only one win in the last 5, of course, the win coming against Spezia. You want to extend that as well. There are only 2 wins in the last 6 Serie A matches, and these wins coming against, Spezia and Crotone, sides you expect Lazio to beat. And they lost to Verona, of course, and they drawn last time out against Benevento for Napoli. It's a little bit better. I don't think that the form is that bad. The draw The loss against Inter, I think, was quite disappointing because they played a little bit better in that game. They played, they had chances to win the game against Inter, but they couldn't, and the penalty was a decisive difference between the two sides. It's going to be intriguing to see how both sides are going to be dealing with this game. Both sides are about open, exciting play. Could we see a defensive game? I don't think so, but hopefully we see a lot of goals, and hopefully we see some real serious, entertaining football from both these incredible sides. That's it for the preview of the weekend in European top leagues. Of course, remember to like, share, comment on the video version of this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates of this episode of the podcast and the other videos on this channel. And follow us on social media, SeriePSP on Twitter, PitchSidePod on Instagram. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can get it from. Until I meet you tomorrow, of course, I'm your boy, the HOD of the PSP, and I'll be seeing you soon.